The Champions League. Will Real Madrid once again find themselves at the center of controversy and somehow lift the trophy? Can Barcelona return to European dominance? Will Arsenal finally win their first Champions League after what many are calling a favorable bracket? Or could Budapest turn their unbelievable run into the greatest underdog story in European football history? In this video, 5 different AI models simulate the entire knockout stage, from the round of 16 all the way to the final in Budapest. No opinions, no narratives, just this season's data. Let's see who the machines crown as champions of Europe. First, round of 16. Let's start with the first matchup, PSG versus Chelsea. First vote came from ChatGPT and it backed PSG. Then Gemini stepped in and immediately pushed back. Gemini believed Chelsea had the edge. Claude entered the conversation and sided with PSG. But Grok wasn't convinced. It leveled the table again. Chelsea. Everything was tied. All eyes turned to DeepSeek. And DeepSeek voted for PSG. With 3 votes to 2, PSG survived the split decision and move on. Matchup number 2. Galatasaray versus Liverpool. Now we head to Istanbul, where chaos usually lives. The first vote came from ChatGPT and it went Liverpool. Then Gemini followed, and it agreed Liverpool again. Claude stepped in and made it 3 straight for Liverpool. At that point, it was basically decided, but DeepSeek pushed back, taking a stand for Galatasaray. Still, the final word went to Grok, and Grok sided with Liverpool. With 4 votes to 1, Liverpool cruised into the next round. Let's continue with matchup number 3, Real Madrid versus Manchester City. 2 giants, but the AIs didn't hesitate. They clearly have a favorite in this matchup. ChatGPT opened the voting, Manchester City. Then Gemini stepped in and agreed, City again. Claude joined and made it 3. From there, the direction was obvious. DeepSeek backed City, and Grok completed the sweep. With 5 votes to 0, Manchester City eliminate Real Madrid in dominant fashion. Matchup number 4, Atalanta versus Bayern Munich. ChatGPT gave the first vote to Bayern. Then Gemini followed. Same call, Bayern again. Atalanta needed the table to shift. But it didn't, because Claude, DeepSeek, and Grok also sided with Bayern Munich. With 5 votes to 0, Bayern Munich overpowered Atalanta and advanced comfortably. Matchup number 5, Newcastle versus Barcelona. Now let's get to the easy bracket of this year's Champions League, starting with Newcastle against Barcelona. Although Newcastle is having a great season, the algorithms don't feel pressure at all. This matchup was a clean sweep, with the 5 AIs voting for Barcelona, as expected. With 5 votes to 0, Barcelona moved forward without resistance. Matchup number 6, Atletico Madrid versus Tottenham. A matchup built for tension, but the vote didn't reflect it. ChatGPT opened with Atletico, then Gemini followed, Atletico again. Claude made it 3. Tottenham needed someone to break the pattern, but no one did. DeepSeek backed Atletico, and Grok completed the sweep. With 5 votes to 0, Atletico Madrid shut the door on Tottenham. Let's continue with matchup number 7. Will Budapest be able to continue their fairy tale run against Sporting CP? Let's find out. First, ChatGPT opened the voting and went with Sporting. But Gemini stepped in and flipped it, Budapest. Then Claude leaned into the underdog story, Buda again. But Grok wasn't buying it. It pulled things back level, choosing Sporting. Everything came down to DeepSeek. Will they go for logic, or will they support the momentum that Budapest currently have? Well, the final vote was for Budapest. With 3 votes to 2, Budapest continue their unbelievable run in the Champions League. Now the final matchup of the round of 16, Bayer Leverkusen versus Arsenal. A serious test, but the vote was ruthless. ChatGPT opened with Arsenal. Then Gemini agreed, Arsenal again. Claude made it 3. At that moment, it was essentially decided. Still, DeepSeek backed Arsenal, and Grok completed the clean sweep. Unfortunately for Bayer Leverkusen, no AI believes they have a chance against Arsenal. With 5 votes to 0, Arsenal makes a statement and advance with authority. Now we have series matchups. Let's find out what happens in the quarterfinals. Let's start with the rematch of last season, PSG versus Liverpool. First, ChatGPT opened with Liverpool, but Gemini immediately countered PSG. Then Claude sided with Liverpool, but Grok pushed back, PSG. So everything came down to DeepSeek, and DeepSeek voted for Liverpool. With 3 votes to 2, Liverpool edge PSG in the tightest call of the round and get their revenge for last season's elimination by PSG. Matchup number 2, Clash of Titans. Manchester City versus Bayern Munich. This one started with a surprise. ChatGPT opened. Manchester City. But Gemini pushed back hard. Bayern. Claude stepped in. Bayern. At this point, City needed a miracle, and DeepSeek and Grok would decide the winner. Unfortunately, it didn't go their way, because both AIs voted for Bayern Munich. With 4 votes to 1, Bayern Munich eliminate Manchester City and march into the semi-finals. For matchup number 3, we go to Spain for the battle between Barcelona versus Atletico Madrid. The first 2 AIs, ChatGPT and Gemini, voted for Barcelona. But DeepSeek broke the rhythm, voting for Atletico Madrid, making us believe they could have a chance. But unfortunately, Claude stepped in and sided with Barcelona. And Grok confirmed it. With 4 votes to 1, Barcelona advanced to the semi-final. For the last matchup of the quarterfinals, we have the underdogs Budapest against the number 1 seed, Arsenal. The fairy tale meets the machine. ChatGPT opened with Arsenal. Then Gemini agreed. Claude made it 3. Buda needed the room to split. It didn't. DeepSeek backed Arsenal. Grok sealed it. With 5 votes to 0, Arsenal brings Buda's Championship League fairy tale to an end. Do you believe the AIs are correct so far? Wait until you see the following matchups. Now it's time to see the semi-finals. The first semi-final is between Liverpool and Bayern Munich. This match should have been a thriller, but the vote was brutal. ChatGPT and Gemini opened with Bayern, putting Liverpool in a very complicated spot, needing the table to shift fast. But it never did. Claude, DeepSeek, and Grok stepped in to decide this first semi-final, and all 3 joined forces to vote for Bayern Munich. This matchup surprisingly was unanimous, putting an end to Arne Slot's team. With 5 votes to 0, Bayern Munich eliminate Liverpool and reach the final. The second semi-final is between Barcelona and Arsenal, another giant matchup and, once again, a ruthless vote. Incredibly, the 5 AIs were aligned again. Barcelona arrived with one of the most dangerous attacking units in the competition. Arsenal, on the other hand, had been nearly flawless in Europe, a perfect run through the league phase, even if they showed a few minor slips in the Premier League lately. So the question was simple. Who takes the second spot in the Champions League final? Well, the winner is Arsenal. With 5 votes to 0, Arsenal overpower Barcelona and book their place in Budapest. Now, what we all wanted to see. The final. Bayern Munich versus Arsenal. The biggest night. The number 1 seed versus the number 2 seed. Arsenal and Bayern Munich face off in the Champions League final. Arsenal arrive after a near-perfect European campaign, with a perfect record and conceding only 4 goals in 8 matches during the league phase. Bayern, on the other hand, have been dominant all season, with their only defeat in Europe coming against Arsenal back in November. This is a rematch, and Bayern come in with revenge on their minds. Let's see how the votes unfold. ChatGPT opened the final and backed Bayern. But Gemini immediately pushed back, Arsenal. Then Claude stepped in and sided with Arsenal. At that moment, everything rested on DeepSeek and Grok, who would determine the champion. Both AIs aligned and decided that the winner of the 2026 Champions League is Arsenal. With 4 votes to 1, Arsenal defeat Bayern Munich once again and are crowned champions of Europe for the first time. And that's it. Here we have the Champions League simulation based only on AI analysis. Do you agree with the machine? Or will football prove it wrong? For sure it will. Drop your predictions below, because on the road to Budapest, AI decides.